Some crimes are brutal, some are tragic, but few leave behind a trail of terror, unanswered questions, and eerie conspiracies like the Keddie Cabin Murders.
7 investigators have been working almost full-time on the murder.
Keddie Murders in rural Plumas.
Keddie Cabin Murders.
4 Plumas County residents were brutally murdered.
A small town, a quiet retreat, and a crime so gruesome that it still haunts investigators decades later. The discovery of the crime scene, April 12, 1981. A peaceful night in the secluded community of Keddie, California, turns into a living nightmare. Cabin 28, a modest wooden house nestled among the trees, becomes the scene of one of the most gruesome and perplexing murder cases in American history. Sue Sharp, a single mother, had moved to Keddie with her 5 children for a fresh start. But what was meant to be a quiet retreat in a small resort town would soon become a crime scene drenched in horror. That night, Sheila Sharp, Sue's oldest daughter, had been staying at a neighbor's house, unknowingly avoiding the horrific fate that awaited her family. The next morning, she returned home, only to stumble upon a sight that would haunt her forever. Shocked and terrified, Sheila immediately ran back to the neighbor's house to get help. The adults quickly contacted law enforcement, setting off an investigation that would leave more questions than answers. Before officers arrived, Sheila and the neighbors took action to protect the surviving children. They carefully removed the 2 younger boys and their friend from the cabin, shielding them from the horrors inside. Not wanting to expose them to any more trauma, they took them to the neighbor's house where they were comforted and kept away from the unfolding crime scene. 3 people were found brutally murdered inside Cabin 28, their bodies bound, beaten, and stabbed. The horror did not stop there. A child was missing, and clues left behind only deepened the mystery. What happened inside Cabin 28 that night? Who was responsible for the bloodshed, and why, after decades, has justice still not been served? The brutality inside Cabin 28. Inside Cabin 28, the crime scene was nothing short of chilling. Sue Sharp, her son Johnny, and his friend Dana Wingate were found bound with medical tape and electrical wire. The brutality was staggering. Multiple stab wounds, blunt force trauma, and clear signs of an overkill attack. The walls were spattered with blood, and a knife and hammer lay nearby, both caked in red. Sue had been gagged with a blue bandana and her underwear, and she suffered a deep wound to her throat. The attack on her was particularly brutal, suggesting a personal vendetta. The autopsy revealed that she had been struck repeatedly in the head with a blunt object, likely the hammer found at the scene, causing severe skull fractures. Her throat had been slashed with a knife so deeply that it nearly severed her windpipe. The extent of her injuries indicated a prolonged and vicious assault. Johnny and Dana had both been beaten and strangled, their bodies positioned in a way that seemed staged. Johnny's autopsy showed extensive head trauma, with multiple fractures and deep lacerations to his skull. Dana had been strangled to the point of asphyxiation before suffering multiple blows to his head. The presence of defensive wounds on both of them suggested they had fought back against their attackers but were ultimately overpowered. Blood splatter analysis indicated that some of the victims may have been moved after they were attacked, further deepening the mystery. Was the killer attempting to send a message, or were they covering their tracks? But the most disturbing detail, Sue's 12-year-old daughter, Tina, was missing. The mysterious disappearance of Tina Sharp. Her disappearance turned a gruesome murder into a full-blown kidnapping case. For 3 years, her fate remained unknown until a jaw-dropping discovery changed everything. In 1984, a bottle collector rummaging through an isolated area of Butte County, approximately 50 miles away from Keddie, stumbled upon a partial human skull. Authorities soon determined it was Tina's. Near the skull, fragments of her clothing were found, including a blanket and a small piece of what was believed to be a tape cassette case. Strangely, authorities received an anonymous phone call a day after the discovery, leading them to believe the person knew about the case and may have been involved. The call was recorded, but the caller was never identified. Why was Tina taken? Was she the primary target all along? Or did she witness something that forced the killers to take her away? theories, and speculations. Over the years, countless theories have surfaced. Investigators, amateur sleuths, and conspiracy theorists have all attempted to piece together what happened inside Cabin 28. Let's examine the most chilling possibilities. Theory number 1. A personal vendetta. Some believe that Sue Sharp was the primary target. Rumors suggest she had conflicts with local men, particularly Martin Smart, a nearby resident with a history of violence. Smart's wife later claimed he had confessed to the murders, but no formal action was taken against him. However, some question why he would so openly admit to the crime, and if he had truly been involved, why wasn't he ever formally charged? Was this just hearsay, or was there an intentional effort to suppress evidence? Theory number 2. The cover-up. One of the most controversial theories involves a police cover-up. It's been alleged that local law enforcement had connections to the prime suspects. Crucial evidence, including a bloody hammer, reportedly went missing for decades. Some believe authorities deliberately buried the truth, possibly because the suspects were informants or had ties to someone in power. But could this theory be overblown? If there was a cover-up, why weren't these suspicions ever substantiated with more concrete evidence? Theory number 3. The suspects who walked free. 2 names frequently linked to the murders are Martin Smart and his friend John Beau Boubaid. Smart, a known violent individual, allegedly had issues with Sue. His wife later stated that he admitted to the killings but was never charged. Beau, meanwhile, had ties to organized crime, adding another dark twist to the theory. Some believe the two had protection from the law, explaining why key evidence went ignored. However, skeptics argue that law enforcement incompetence rather than corruption could explain the lack of action. Theory number 4. The stranger in the dark. Some believe an unknown drifter or transient could be responsible. Keddie was a remote area, and travelers often passed through. Could the murders have been a random act of violence by someone just passing through? While this theory is possible, it fails to explain why the crime scene showed signs of a personal attack rather than a robbery gone wrong. The 2018 breakthrough, DNA evidence. In 2018, investigators made a major discovery. A piece of tape from the crime scene contained previously untested DNA. The new forensic analysis confirmed that at least one of the suspects had left their biological imprint on the scene. However, law enforcement has not publicly disclosed whether the DNA matched anyone in the system. Additional witness statements from the 2018 investigation suggested that some individuals, now deceased, may have had knowledge of the crime, but were too afraid to come forward. Furthermore, forensic experts confirmed that multiple people were involved in the attack, lending credibility to the theory of multiple attackers. This new discovery came like a ray of hope for Sheila, who remains determined to see justice served. To have this solved would finally give my family some closure, some answers as to why it happened and why it took so long to solve, she said. Yet, despite the passage of time, the trauma lingers. Reflecting on the events, she admitted, it could have been that I blocked it out, and the shock of it all too. Even after more than 3 decades, the weight of that night still haunts her, but she continues to hold on to hope that the truth will finally come to light. Overlooked evidence. The bloody hammer. Several pieces of evidence, including a bloody hammer believed to be one of the murder weapons, were found in a local pond decades later. This raised new questions. Why were such crucial items overlooked in the initial investigation? Was evidence deliberately ignored to protect someone? The case remains an open investigation, and the Plumas County Sheriff's Office continues to appeal to the public for any information that might lead to solving this mystery. Despite the new evidence, no arrests have been made, leaving the haunting question, the lingering questions. What really happened in Cabin 28? Were the right people questioned, or were key suspects protected? And most importantly, who is still out there carrying the weight of this terrible crime? What do you think happened inside Cabin 28? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love unraveling real-life mysteries, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Our next case might be even darker than this one. See you soon, if you dare.